Hey, what do you say? This is Boss and Men Speaking Out, and I am here with another outstanding guest, Mr. James Newberry, and he is the founder of Dating Profile Secrets. He's an author and an expert of online dating. How are you, Mr. Newberry?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to let listeners know this is our 82nd episode, and the title of the podcast is "How Valuable is Effective Communication in Our Romantic Life." And we're going to cover a lot of things today. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Newberry, our special guest. Um, Mr. James M. Newberry is an advertising and fundraising copywriter who has worked for America's most predominant historic sites, animal charities, political candidates, and a veteran of support groups. Besides winning over a dozen awards, he is a founding partner in McLean and Newberry's direct marketing agency. He also hosted a Donor Doctor Show podcast for 66 episodes from 2015 and 2017, and has been featured as a speaker at national conferences. But during the pandemic, Mr. Newberry wrote Dating Profile Secrets for Men: Attract Your Dream Girl Through Storytelling to help men create their best profile. He also began Dating Profile Secrets, LLC, to provide a full range of services for men looking for the winning edge. When I read the about you then I was given the information, I said, I must have this gentleman on because now the world has changed so much from when we used to go out and meet people in physical form at a location, a library, a grocery store, church, a bar, whatever, to like online dating, right? Swipe right, swipe left. And it really says, okay, what does the next 20 years look like, right? And how we as men, how are we ineffective? And what we're doing right now when it comes to creating profiles or actually seeking dates. And last but not least, are we modifying our profile to reflect the type of person we want, or are we really giving them our authentic selves? Meaning, do they see our online representative versus our unique person? But before we get started in that space, Mr. Newberry, please let the listeners know who you are. I said what I said, but please, you got the floor.
Thanks, Bob. You did a really good job of telling my background. Yes, I have an advertising background, and like that show Mad Men, I kind of apply the concepts I learned in advertising to an online dating profile. So that was my strength. There's what I found difficult about communication was, even if you have a strong dating profile, you still have to have that first date, second date, and the phone call before that. That's also difficult. But most people that are dating consultants have an expertise in psychology. Maybe they're pastors or they give relationship advice. My expertise is not in that. It is in how to create your brand, your best image. And as I said, as you said, in the pandemic, I was giving a lecture on storytelling to a national audience of nonprofits and charities. And I said kind of offhand, storytelling also works in online dating. And I showed the woman I was dating, who's my wife now. Mm-hmm. And they all found that humorous. They said I should go into online dating. And when I saw how bad many men's profiles were, I mean, there really needs to be help. Before we started, we were talking about resumes, and a lot of people get help for resumes, to write a resume, which is a relatively easy thing to create. Dating profile is more complicated because you have visual images and copy, you have targeting. Who do you want to appeal to? You got to think of your niche.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think, that's really interesting to say the least, because once again, there's multiple dating profiles out here. People are just, whether it's on match.com or, this website, folks are actually, capitalizing too off of these type of websites. and men are just putting. I'm going to describe myself as this person on here. I'm going to describe myself as this person over here. I'm going to describe myself as this person over here to appeal to a assortment of different women. But really, who are you? Right? Are you a chameleon? And women do it too.
Oh,
I just want to make sure this is not just this is men speaking out, but women do it too. So, in your approach to storytelling, I guess my question is, you said you will have men create profiles that evoke empathy and trust and crucial elements. How do you do that?
well, one of the founders of the relationship space was a fellow by the name of Doc Love. He's passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually surveyed like 2,000 women what they most disliked about men dating. And the first thing is they bring up sex too early. They're too pushy on sex. And so that's part of the experience is knowing, in selling anything and a dating profile and yourself, you're selling yourself in a dating sense, is knowing the pain points, what the person you're targeting, what they've been through. And a lot of women have been through just really hostile comments from men, any kind of rejection. My wife did the private mode on Match.com because she just got tired. So that shows you how important it was to create an ad that she would appeal, she would reach out to. And so you have to understand that a lot of us men are we think of our pain, a lot of rejection, being a man, a lot of times you misread signals. I don't know, you occasionally run into a gold digger. It's not that common, but occasionally a woman is just, I don't know, wasting your time. But women have a worse experience. And we generally, there's some exceptions. I was in Colombia, and I remember there was a scam where Colombian women were like kidnapping, luring them down there, and then they were being kidnapped and stuff like that. The State Department warned it. That does happen. But for everything that happens to a guy, it's much more common for a woman to be, I don't know, date raped or have something slipped into her drink, So you have to, you do want to create trustworthiness. And one of the ways you do that is by smiling. And a lot of men, most men do not smile in their photos. I don't know why. Maybe that's what they consider masculine, but women like that. At least some of your photos should be. And your profile needs to be smiling too. It needs to be optimistic. Don't mention all these negatives. No plastic body parts. I've actually read profiles. No plastic body parts. No fatties. What? Who would put on the profile no fatties? It sounds so bad to women, Nothing over size 8. I just, you're entitled to your preferences, but you don't need to put them on there and kind of, so just go right on the negative. Go very optimistic, positive, happy, smiling. Think of yourself as smiling.
Right. Well, Mr. Newberry, I gotta rebuttal a little bit on that one, right? I gotta, like me, for example, right? I am very health conscious, right? Yes, I am 52. I don't want to look 52. I don't want to, be stereotyped as a 52-year-old that can't move. And I got a grandson. I got to stay active, and I want to make sure that the person that I'm with or that I'm deciding to choose to be with, they are active and taking care of themselves as well. So if I get on a dating profile, I'm going to clearly state health is wealth, right? And you must take care of yourself because I'm too young to be your caregiver and you're too young to be mine, right? Because some folks are like, well, I'm a foodie. I like to eat. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like to eat too, right? We need to sustain life.
Right.
But do you work out, right? But do you take care of yourself, right? Or I got to be treated by this, or I've seen all kind of crazy, pardon my language, I've seen all kind of crazy ass profiles where they say the man has to have this, he has to have this, he has to have this, he has to have this. I'm like, well, what do you bring to the table? Right. So now my thought process is, okay, I understand what you want, but what about what I want? And I'll ask the question too. What are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for someone who can, wear a red cape and boots and fly through the sky and save the Daily Planet. And I'm going to be their kryptonite to be their weakness. Okay.
That's
I
kind
get
of
what you're
weird.
saying. But are you going to be my Wonder Woman and I'm going to be your Superman? Right? So I need to understand sometimes for me, because I'm recently divorced, and I need to understand, like, okay, and we're gonna talk about that too for a little bit. This is the new normal. This world out here is interesting, to
Oh
say the
yeah.
least.
Well, I would say the way you said it was fine. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm looking for somebody. I like to run 5K races. I'd love to have somebody who likes to run too. There's nothing wrong. It's all how you say it. It's just got to be positive. And when you talk about your previous relationships, we're talking about communication. Boy, go light on the negativity there too. I've never been cheated on as far as I know. But if I had, I might bury it. I just wouldn't lead with it for sure. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
just
right,
it's
right,
something you do not want to seem like you're not over your ex, that you have real negative feelings towards it. You don't want to get that vibe off at all. You want to seem like you're happy, as again, smiling.
right. Well, okay. You're right. Because women, like, I don't want to hear if I'm on a date with a woman, I don't want to hear what her ex did to her. I don't want to hear, because there's two sides to every story, right? There's his side,
Mhm.
there's her side, and there's the truth. And each person will try to make the other person look like the bad guy. When in all actuality, it takes two people to make something toxic, not just one.
Right.
Right. So that's I'm gonna make them very clear on that for listeners who are out here, especially women that are men bashing and men that are women bashing. It took both of you to get there or not to get there. So I guess what my question is for you is that, in your experiences when of course now you met your wife, you told tell it storytelling, now you're lovely, you're lovely wife, you're married, right?
Right.
uh,
Right.
which is
Right.
congratulations, is awesome. Hey, that's awesome. I am an advocate of marriage.
Good.
One day I will be a husband again. Not sure when the day is going to be, but I am a husband. I am a husband, not a boyfriend. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Now, but I guess this dating seems to be a lot of guesswork these days, right? People want to feel safe. They want to feel loved. Their heart, they can't be as vulnerable. They want to be vulnerable, but they're afraid that someone's going to take that information and run with it,
Right.
right? And also people are scared of rejection. So my question is, in your experience, your research, how is that impactful in actually securing trust in a when you're dating someone, whether it's with a profile, because folks are gonna write what they want to write, right, to make themselves seem like Captain America, and then other people are gonna say, like you said, men don't smile, want to be the hard look. But
Yeah.
in your experience, are we really meeting the person or their representative?
Well, I don't think you want to write a check that you can't cash. You know.
Right.
But yeah, the dating profile is like an iceberg. You don't see most of the iceberg. You think you
Mhm.
do. You see, I don't know, 12% of it. And there's certain things that are visible, but you need to have something underneath that iceberg later on, and whatever
Right.
that is. I think also, and I am for smiling. I still think the ideal profile. When I was a kid, I still play basketball, and my dad was in the military, so I was playing mostly with soldiers, and they had a nickname for me, Opie. And I said, well, why do you call me Opie? I don't have red hair. And he said, you act like Opie. And there's nothing wrong with Ron Howard. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
very successful man. I'm sure he's a
Absolutely.
very successful man. But that's not the ideal dating profile. The ideal dating profile would have an element of Ron Howard or Opie, uh, we mixed with the Fonz from Happy Days. A little bit cool. I had a blog there, Lovable Rogue, and that came from a guy. There was an English dating app where your friends would write it for you, and his friend was an ad guy, and he wrote that, a lovable rogue. So the lovable is the more important part, but you want a little bit of I don't know, swagger, bad boy, maverick.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go too far. You want to avoid extremes. You don't want to be a jerk. You want to smile, but you want to have a little bit of confidence, a little bit of swagger too. So it's kind of it is a tricky ad, as I said.
Yeah, yeah, it's very tricky, right? Because some women want bad boys, right? Oh, he's got to be a bad boy. You're right. Some of he's got to be, 6 foot this and make this kind of money and et cetera, et cetera. And I get it. People got their preferences, right? So, and also too, at the same time, you've got guys out here posting photos and pictures of themselves in nice suits and this and that, the third, the shirts off, muscles, but they live at home with their mom in the basement. They're not taking care of children. They're very abusive, verbally and physically, right? So, like I said, once again, going back to the representative, right? And so, and then let's reverse this around for a second. Let's reverse this around, okay? Like me, this is just my preference. I don't like weave. I don't like extensions. I don't like that. I like a natural woman, natural hair, natural. Show me who you are, right? But you call me a lie, but you'll take off your eyelashes, you'll take off your makeup, you'll take off your wig, and I don't know who you are anymore. I don't even freaking recognize you, right? And you got the nerve to call me a lie. Well, I get it. Everybody wants to enhance themselves and look pretty and so forth, but I'm not the kind of guy who likes a lot of makeup either. I don't like that. I like natural beauty. Because we're going to get older, we're going to age gracefully, right?
Oh.
So when you're dealing with someone, or when you're trying to impress an individual that you've never met before, right? Your next last kiss is what I call that.
Right.
How do you present yourself, though, right? What type of photos do you use? What type of information do you want to share? Some folks can go a little risque, right? Mm-hmm. Shirts off and them in swimsuits and so forth. But other folks are a little bit more conservative, right? Maybe them speaking, or maybe nice shirt and tie or some sort. I mean, what's the middle ground here?
Well, it depends on the profile and your age. One of the top guys on Tinder was he was an ARIA pilot, 6'3", black guy. And he had a profile. He had a shirt off. Of course, he looked good with the shirt off. That helps, obviously. I mean, I've seen profiles where men have their shirts off and they don't look good. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, like put that back in quick.
So he had a profile, but it was a shirt off. He was at the beach. It was a beach, some maybe in Spain or someplace like that. Mm-hmm. And it was an article I read in Medium about that, and he did very well. I think for 35, 40, if you're looking to say a more of a relationship oriented one, say eHarmony or Match, mm-hmm. I would definitely lean towards dressing up more in most of your photos and avoiding selfies. Selfies are bad because they distort the size of your nose. Mm. There's an optimum distance. I don't know, around 6 feet perhaps. Mm-hmm. I went to this website, and I have no financial stake in them. It's called photofeeler.com, and I ran my photos by them or either my sister. Mm-hmm. It's very important. Guys don't know the vibe they're giving off in their photos. You just don't have a good idea because you know yourself well. What women like may be totally different. Anyway, they ranked your photos on trustworthiness, smarts, and I guess looks. And the generally I would rank stronger on trustworthiness, except the one I was on CNN. That one didn't do well on trustworthiness. I don't know if it's about that network or the media in general, but it's just like a basketball. You want to be able to pass, dribble, or shoot. It's like that's a trifecta, and you want photos that your photos kind of work like a team. So you might want some that are show that you're successful, others that show that you're fun, you're doing an activity, you're rock climbing, but you also want a certain kind of photo, and that's one with a story appeal. And I wrote a blog about David Ogilvy's famous ad for Hathaway's shirt, where he had an aristocratic looking guy with an eye patch, and it caught everybody's eye. Said, why does he wear an eye patch? And I'm not saying you should wear an eye patch,
Sure.
But in my dating app, I went to a family wedding in Mexico, and there was a donkey, and I was in a tuxedo because it was a fancy wedding, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's ever seen that, so it just catches your eye. I had another one I wanted to show that I was an empty nester. So this is before all the disturbances. I was in Israel and Jerusalem, and they had an attractive soldier with an M16. I said, "Oh, can I get my photo with her and my son?" So, but it stands out. You don't see women, So, and I had another one with to just give you ideas. Is I was kayaking and my feet were upside down, and so it was like an idea. Don't go. Be careful. Wear your life vest. So just photos that stand out.
Right.
So you might want to think about that. Any kind of photo that stands out with story appeal to kind of, but like I said, a team, a couple, you don't have to have a tux if you're just not a tux guy, but you can wear a collared shirt rather than a tank top.
Sure.
Jacket. I mean, if let's say I live in DC, so the Kennedy Center, I don't go to the Kennedy Center every week, but I go there at least once or twice a year. So you get your photo there. You know what I'm saying? It can be you. You can go. You could. There's a. You could go to the Kentucky Derby. It's not too far from you. You could. Something like that. Kind of fun. You do fun activities. That kind of thing. You're kind of selling. You got to be thinking about your offer. There's explicit offer. I'm looking for long-term relationship leading to marriage, and you got to sell that, and we can talk about that if you like. But there's also kind of implicit offers, you show yourself you like sailing, and you think, oh, I get to go sailing with this guy. You know what I mean? So you're kind of selling the dream. I'm not talking about being like tender swindler that
right.
But I mean, you're just trying to sell that this would be a fun experience. This guy has a lot to offer. That's what you want them to think. He's safe, but he's fun. He's got a little bit. He's still masculine. He's not too weak. It's like I said, it's a difficult thing to do.
Right, and see that's part of this whole the effective communication, right? Because the pictures, the profile, the first time conversations, not hearing about first dates with exes. And and how that didn't work out for you. And now you're taking that same energy and you're bringing it over to somebody new who has no clue what's going on, and they don't want to hear really what's going on, what happened then. They care about the now, right? But I do have another question for you around the selfies and pictures and so forth. I am really big on seeing the entire person on a picture, right?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
The camera, people take at an angle, and it's like maybe here up or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I need to see all of you.
Yeah.
I'm really big on that, right? I'm really big on that because I've had some situations.
I know what you mean. I've had that
where what does it say in your vehicle? Objects in the mirror appear to be closer to what they really are. People have shown up not to really be whom they seem they were, right? So I've had some experiences. I'm like, hey, listen, I need to see you. I need to see all of you. And then they can come back and say, well, why? Why do you want to see all of me? Well, because goddamn it, I want to see what you look like completely versus who you are, in that space. So I asked that question: do you work out? If you do, what kind of gym you go to, right? And necessary and working out is not lifting weights. It's just 30 minutes of activity, walking, in a park or something. You can sit down and watch 30 minutes of Friends and CNN, then you can get up and walk for 30 minutes while you're doing it at the same time. So I'm very big on that. I'm very, very big on that. I keep going back to that. I need to stop. I'll stop being a bad guy.
I'll tell you what I learned is you'll also see some photos of mixed weights, like where they're relatively thin and then they're weight. Well, you can be sure the women they're pretty good on photos. Their weight is what their heaviest is. Photo they show. That's been, if they lost 30 pounds from that, they would have removed that photo.
Well, I got a few women on this watching right now, right? And I just got a wow.
I would say men too.
Yeah.
And then I would also say if a woman doesn't put a full length photo, it shows you that she isn't pleased, at minimum, isn't pleased with how.
Mm.
So it's an issue of confidence, perhaps, but more likely she's just heavier, than she thinks that just you won't notice.
Yeah.
So in that case, I generally don't like to talk. I talk over the phone, but I don't like one of these video calls. So I'm worried about how I look, and it's hard to concentrate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that would be a case where you'd want to do it like a FaceTime, is if you
Yeah.
have, I'm sure, but it's kind of a difficult thing. Well, I'd like to see, how you look.
Yeah.
Like
That
I,
come off kind of creepy. That's kind of
yeah,
creepy a little bit,
I
right?
like a woman who put, a woman I dated. She showed had a photo of her like in yoga, so you see it from behind even,
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
you see the whole thing. It's not, but she's confident how she looks.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't put that, and so that's a positive. Yeah, I think that but I would prefer, even if a woman was overweight, size 12, 14, 16, whatever. If she just owns it, that's much better than trying to
Right.
hide it. I
Right.
just think that's better to own, um, what you are. It's there's too much lying in these things. I don't have a problem if you're 5'7", you want to say you're 5'8". Or women fib a year or two. As a guy, I think it's a bad idea. You're talking about credibility. I think you should tell your exact age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I like about Match, and there's some others where you can put actual captions on your photo, which you always put captions because they're highly read.
Mm.
Try to be as specific as possible. This is my family's reunion on October 10th. Da, 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 da.
Gotcha.
50th wedding anniversary, for instance, is one of the photos I had. I kind of forgot to mention. I led with an origin story. Uh, a dating profile is a little bit like an obituary in that sense. Most obituaries start with an origin story, right? Where you're
You
born,
do.
or
Yeah.
a
Born
little bit
this.
about your family, maybe, or then you might talk about your education, and then you might your
Sure.
profession, your hobbies, uh, maybe a church membership, or hobbies. In your other, you would leave off your loved ones perhaps in a profile, but there is an element of overlap. So is a way to start that. And there's not just one good origin story. The self-made man is popular. I have a friend who was one of the boat people in Vietnam, barely survived, and lives in Florida, does really well. His sister's a member of Congress. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there are a lot of people in America who were able to, it's one of the strengths of the country, is that a lot of people are able to really, really succeed. And that's a popular story. There's not just one story. You just got to tell your best story.
Gotcha. 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 I think I wanna shift a little bit into the actual, like, I know that you specialize in dating, romance, midlife crisis, and so forth, right? But I want to shift a little bit into romance,
Okay.
right? Into what that looks like, right? Um, I think sometimes the art of romance has been, it's going away. It's not chivalry, the holding hands, the walking, the getting to know somebody, the romantic, essence of just being in the same space where, it's not about, having sex. It's about intimacy, right? Because intimacy to me is into me you see, right?
Mm.
That's my reference. That's how I look at intimacy. So I think, you know, do people really value romance, right? But you said something instrumental. They have to value themselves first before they can value somebody else, right? And is there enough self-care, self-love, empathy, compassion, and understanding that people may come across when in a dating profile, or when they meet somebody for the first time? You know, uh, an example may be, hey, I know I just lost my sister here recently. This is a real example. I just lost my sister, about a month ago, and you know, people that I would have expected to reach out to me, that I've dated or were, married to, didn't,
Mm-hmm. Right.
right? So, you know, or individuals that I've met may have just kind of overlooked that part of it, say, hey, well, I'm talking to you, boss, and where you been? I said, well, my sister passed, and I've just been, really trying to get through this rough space. Oh, okay. right? That's it. That's what I get. Oh,
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I had a death in the family recently too,
yeah,
and it's very different. When I was a kid, my grandparents, it's just so many people would bring food. It was just like you were swamped with food and flowers.
yeah,
And there's been a breakdown. It's unfortunate. I mean, it still exists, but I think a lot of people are uncomfortable. They'll say something, and the text is not a substitute for a card or flowers or something like that. I think we over rely on text. There's nothing wrong with sending a text, but like a relative, if they should, phone, you send a card. You know what I mean? If it's like a relative of yours,
yeah,
uh, you
yeah,
know, um, people don't attend funerals as much. Yeah, there has been a breakdown.
yeah,
Uh, is one of the things I just really hate, like on Facebook, when somebody dies and you don't agree with them. Maybe they're a bad person objectively. It's not the right time. You know what I mean? You should somebody's mourning them.
yeah,
Pass. You don't need to say, oh, they were a jerk. They're rotting in hell. You see this. I mean, you really see this rotting in hell. I mean, this is just not. You're not supposed to take joy in other
yeah.
people's death. It's just wrong.
Hmm.
Uh, it
Hmm.
was wrong, and there was the late Kevin Samuels. I remember he said some controversial things. I can understand why women didn't like him. Some women didn't like him anyway.
Right.
But I actually read women. They just nasty. It
Yeah.
doesn't make you look good if you're nasty. When somebody passes, you want to take the high road. And if you consistently take there's the law of reciprocity. You give back usually what you give out. There are occasionally people will take advantage of you, but more often than not, if you're a nice person, people are nice back to you. If you're considerate.
Yeah. I have the consistency to think that people are by nature are good people, right? Everybody's a good person. That's just what I believe internally. And you're right. When Mr. Samuels did pass, God rest his soul, he got what he wanted. He got what he deserved. Right? He was no good anyway. And see what people don't understand. This is, and I'm not. I like most of the stuff he said, but I didn't really think I think his approach could have been more tactful in how he said it, right? Because a
Well,
lot of
he
it had
did a
truth
large
to it.
audience by that, though.
Yeah. There was some truth to what he was saying, right? And I think that even with married women, they had no dog in the fight because he actually believed in a family. If you really sit and think about it, he believed in a family unit. So he kept telling women to go back to your ex, go back to your ex. You had a
Yeah.
baby by this man, go back to him, so build your family. And a lot of folks missed that message. It went right over their head because they were thinking about that he was women bashing, and that wasn't the case at all. He was throwing some realistic fact out there, and a lot of folks couldn't take it and accept it. Once again, I'm not saying that I'm a big Kevin Samuels fan, but I did agree to some of the stuff that he mentioned and said, and I'm gonna put it out there in the universe. Now,
Mhm.
back on romance.
Right back on
Why do people struggle with that though? Why do people struggle with the interaction of being romantic? Right? Is it? Is
Well,
it?
I mean, there's been, there was a time, it's in my lifetime, so it's not a lot long ago, where it was kind of unusual to be divorced, for example. And you and I are both divorced. It
Mhm.
was kind of like, oh, so and so's from a divorced family. And it was even more rare to have a child out of wedlock. Of course, this is quite common and majority sometimes. Yeah, so, why is that? I don't know. I mean, I was listening to the person we just talked about. I mean, he came from that kind of background, and he spoke about the pain. I don't know. I think there's part of it. Some would say decline in faith. Others would say just the more, some would blame feminism. It's beyond my understanding to know why it happened. I just know it has happened.
Right.
That people are having a harder time connecting. And therapy is more common. Used to be
Yeah.
a stigma about therapy, which is wrong. I mean, therapy is a good idea. You really need to. People that do how-to books on everything else won't do that with their significant other. How to improve the relationship. They
Right.
take their partner for granted.
Right. And thank you for saying that, right? Because the therapy, well, to me, I've been in therapy. I'm actually in therapy now as well, because I want whomever I decide to be with one day, I have the saying hashtag next me, best me, right? Because you're gonna get the best me that I've ever been before, previous to, in my life. So, I think that's so huge because, there's still some men out here today that shy away from it. Oh, I don't. And there's some couples in therapy or that don't want to do therapy because they feel like, well, I'm not the problem, you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So how do you fix it? Right? How do you fix it? Like you just said, you call a repairman out here to fix your vehicle, right? Or your roof leak, or so a lawn person to, to plant flowers and trees. To fix the lawn, you go to a professional to get that stuff done. But how do you fix the relationship? Right? How do you fix yourself so you can be properly prepared? My father always said, he said, son, here's the 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've been raised off that saying. So how do you properly prepare yourself so you can perform with a profile, with a date, with the opposite sex, or whatever your preference is, by doing the work? Got to put the work in.
You got to put the work in. As I said, I think it starts with the dating profile because that creates your brand, and you want to have a woman who has a high interest in you, and that's one thing to discern. Is she just into you for, I don't know if you have resources, for example, or she thinks you're handsome or fun or whatever. Does she really love you? You want a woman that really loves you.
Yeah.
And you want a woman that you really love too, the same thing. And if you really love them, then you're going to work through these problems. It's going to be easier to work through these problems. I would also say that another problem is there's fewer people raised in what I would call happy families. And I don't know exactly what a happy family is, but we kind of have an idea of a happy family. And there's just more people broken. And it gets harder when you're divorced, in that they could, even if they had a happy family, they may have been burned later. You know what I mean, by various men.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an interesting situation. I dated a widow, and I found that difficult. I almost prefer a woman who talks badly about her ex. She just never got over her late husband. I mean, it was like he was there with us. I mean, he was on her iPhone. She just had like a shrine to him everywhere. And It was so much. I actually knew the guy. It was too much for me. I didn't want to live my whole life in the shadows of this other guy. So that was an unusual situation. It was actually worse.
Wow. You mentioned the word divorce, which I want to kind of pivot into right now too, right? That was actually one of the bullet points, right? I said, that's one of your specializations is divorce. And of course, being a divorced man myself, I've been married a couple of times and I've been divorced both, of course, both times. And, of course, the first time I was a lot younger, like 20, 21 years old. I was a kid. I wasn't even fully psychologically developed up here yet, as a kid. But of course, here now, as in, 30 years later, the same thing, right? Of course. But I did some statistics. I did some data on this, and it says 42%, which is 2.4 divorces per 1,000 people. That's what the current number is today. 40 is at 42%, and this came from the website. I think it's called Anxiety and Depression Association.org. It's a bunch of different things on here, but I actually pulled this data. And it says that means it's 86 divorces every hour, every single hour, 86 divorces every hour versus 230 marriages every hour.
Well, that's a positive then.
Yeah, it's positive. But here's the kicker, right? Here's the kicker. Second marriages, 60 to 67% in divorce. What's going on? What are we? Now, I'm an advocate of the family. I believe in the family. I believe in a husband, wife, children, grandchildren, God first.
Right.
Gotta put God first. That's God comes first. The Lord is first.
Right.
Amen. But at the same time, what is going on? 67%? of second marriages. Jesus,
That is scary, isn't it?
scary. It's scary.
Yeah, if I really thought about it, I would have never got. But you got to hope that you're one of those 130. You got to work at it, as you said earlier. You have
Yeah,
to work at it. You have to make it that you're going to get through. It's a partnership, and you're going to get through it.
yeah. I think it's easier to walk away than it is to do the work, right? It's to walk. I'm done with it. I got my own money. I got my own this. I got my own that. I don't need you, right? But you did when you were coming up, and now that you're there,
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's no value. So was it really a bad investment?
Right.
I don't know. And how do we cope with that? How do we take that divorce talk or those past experiences and we look for mates when we're probably scorned in some capacity? Historically, what we've experienced, are we taking that same baggage and that same idealism and bringing it over into a new space with somebody else? So we're taking that same toxicity over here. How's that a benefit? And we have the tendency as sometimes men and women make comparisons. Well, my last wife did this, or my last husband, he did this. Well, I see that's a trigger because I see you're doing the same thing he did, and he's gaslighting, or he's, what's the word everybody's using today? Not gaslight. I forget the word. It's a really negative word. I can't think of right offhand because I'm so this is such a passionate space for me. But at the same time, how do we get beyond that and give the next person an opportunity to be, themselves without judging them on our past experiences?
Well, I think we have to give ourselves time to heal. And that's why if you're separated, I urge you to wait till you're divorced till you get back on the dating apps. And there's a couple reasons. One is if you're separated, you're kind of a second class citizen. You're suspect because women know that a lot of us, the separated guys, are actually married. Or maybe they might go back to their wife, or maybe they're not healed from that. So I think one of the things is to let yourself get divorced, to get healed,
Yes.
and to know that you're vulnerable. And again, just to have that sunny, optimistic attitude, to be happy. Do you want to be one of those people that's kind of radiating happiness, positive, and you just want to let all the negative, occasionally, I don't think I've been ghosted much, but occasionally you're going to, maybe they found somebody better or somebody more suitable for them, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You just got to know that's part of the process. You're going to get some rejections, but you're going to get some positive. You have some fun too. And some women aren't going to be your wife, but they're going to be a lot of fun to be with. You're gonna have a rich experience that you kind of remember happily.
Yes. And the word is narcissist. That's one of the young ladies in the chat mentioned that. And I'm going to say thank you because I couldn't think of it right offhand, right? But that's the word everybody uses, right? Government cheese. Everybody just runs that word into the mud, right? But you mentioned something here a second ago that really kind of stuck with me a little bit. You said something to the point of when people are taking historically, well, I'm paraphrasing, taking historically, those experiences, right? And of course, we're putting them in today's world with the new person that we're dealing with. We know it's not fair, and we know it's not right, right? But I think also too, we as men, and this kind of shifts into the midlife crisis area, I think that we become frustrated because we don't know what we really want. Not just with the mate, but with ourselves, right? Where are we in life? Now I'm a middle-aged man. What am I doing with myself, right? And so now my mood changes, right? I want to give up. I want to, it happens between 40 and 60 years old, but it's not a disorder. It's mostly psychological. So we start treating ourselves differently and thinking different about ourselves. And then we start thinking differently about others whom we're trying to be with. How, as we as men, deal with midlife crisis, especially if we're, there's nothing cool about being in your 50s and being single. There's nothing cool about it whatsoever. It's not cool, guys. It's not cool. But at the same token, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think the positive story, you hear a lot of negative about online dating. I think if you're like a 40 to 60-year-old divorced guy, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's ever been a better time. And I'll tell you why. A lot of young men are struggling in their 20s. They're unemployed. Colleges, and I'm not saying you have to go to college to be a successful person. I'm not saying that at all. But colleges are 2-to-1 female or 3-to-2, something like that. They're going more and more. And there's a lot of young men that are struggling. Even if they work, they spend all their time in video games, which is not really kind of building yourself. I'm not against them as part thing. A lot of young men are addicted to porn and things of this sort.
True.
So, it was a funny story. One of the women I dated, this woman from Russia. She was a realtor, very attractive. I kind of got a vibe that she was a little bit of a into the money kind of thing. But anyway, her daughter was dating, and I ended up marrying a guy who was a retired major general. He looked young for his age. He was like 54. He looked like 42 or something. And he was very fit. But we're talking about at the time, there's no way somebody like him would have dated somebody in their 20s. Mm-hmm. But there's now those opportunities. I think that's too much of a gap for me, but to each his own. But I'm saying there is a real opportunity to date a woman, say 5, 10, 15 years. And particularly if you're talking about, I remember one of the first women I talked to, I never went out with her because her offer was so bad. She said she was looking to marry in 6 months. Like that's
she was on the express train.
Yeah. She was single. I mean, she divorced, her kid, husband left her, didn't live her. She didn't have any relatives in the area, so it was such a burden. I thought, because I wouldn't make a decision in 6 months. So I wouldn't want to waste your time. You need to, a couple years or at least a year, I would think. And but that was her offer. So that's why I think if you're talking about communication, we talk too much. I'm old enough to remember Soul Train Don Cornelius. Don Cornelius never said anything.
Peace, love, and soul.
He said very little. He said very little. But try to be a little bit more like that. We guys talk too much.
Yeah.
And a couple things, we don't look for red flags. We don't ask questions. One of the reasons I like writing a longer profile is I want her to know about me, and then when we're talking on the phone on the date, I prefer her to do most of the talking. Sometimes their women are shy, and you just have to pick up the slack. But I would rather her do the talking because she's going to give away information. Maybe she may give red flags. You'll come across as like more, less narcissistic. So it's positive on your end, right?
Okay.
That's something. If I could go back in time, just talk less.
Okay.
Think of Don Cornelius. He was successful.
Well, in this situation, less is more. Now, I'm going to give you a real dating experience. Mm-hmm. All right. And I want you to tell me if I was wrong on this one. This is a real dating experience. This is a true story. True story. Okay. So I went on a date with a young lady. I didn't really call it a date. We went to lunch. Right. Went to lunch. No big deal. Right. Went to lunch. Just kind of talking. She, they had napkins on the table. Right. Your silverware is wrapped up in a napkin. Right. And I'm very etiquette based. Right. So I put my napkin in my lap, and, had a meal. And she took her napkin and she put it on the table, and then she just started to eat. As my friends told me, I was really, really petty because I was completely turned off at that point. He said, dude, it's just a freaking napkin. Right? But have I been programmed? That's the word of the question, right? Have I been programmed to think what my way is the right way and hers is wrong? Or, was I even justified in just saying, you know what? And we finished lunch, of course, but I was like, you know what? that's just like a deal breaker for me. And it was just so stupid.
I never thought of that, but that's an unusual thing to see too, though.
Yeah. So did I put in my profile, must know how to use a napkin in a restaurant? You know?
No, no. It sounds
Yeah,
like I don't know.
yeah.
That's an unusual one.
It's unusual, right? It's unusual. But I was completely turned off because I'm just very I'm very formal, right? I'm very, elbows off the table, and and this is how I was brought up. My parents, I'm coming from a two-parent household, and it was like, listen, you posture is good, and you close your mouth on the M, and you sit up and have dinner, and I was just like, and I sat and thought about myself. I said, do I got a problem? Am I being too critical thinking in this space? Because she could have been a very good woman, could have gave her opportunity.
You're not wrong to have your preferences. I mean, that's an unusual one, but one that bothers me. You were talking about women wearing too much makeup or fake.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me more in a date is a woman that doesn't prepare at all. And I'm not talking about like a morning coffee. Even a morning coffee, they come in maybe with their yoga pants. So it's a nice look.
Yeah, there you go. Back to yoga pants.
Along with this woman, and we went out on several dates. She was a great conversationalist. We really hit it off, but I noticed on her profile photos that any close ones, she always wore sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
And she did have them out, but it was always a full body photo. And she just didn't really, she had kind of beady eyes. I don't know. I like eyes. So she had beady eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't prepare at all. She had like a sweater, a loose fitting sweater. And it looked like she just put any preparation at all. It's like, I went into that date thinking, well, this could be my wife, which is really, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Sure.
But at least there's a 1 in, 40, 50 chance that a woman you date will become your wife.
Be nice. That'd be nice.
A higher chance of being a long-term. So, you do want to prepare. And she did. And it was kind of disheartening. It was like this wasn't as serious to her. It was, she wasn't looking for a change. But it also might reflect that women are hit on so much that they don't think they have to do much. Some women say.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting too. And I'm going to wrap it up in a little bit, but it's interesting too, is that I've found that that's women will once they get your name and your information, they will do a thorough background check. They'll check your LinkedIn, they'll check your social media, they'll check, we as men, we don't do that, right? We just happen to get a date. We just have to get some company. We don't do that, right? But historically, some folks that tell me, yeah, I know you got a podcast. I'm like, you do? I didn't say anything about it. Well, I did my research, and I did my this, that, and the third. I was like, oh, so what is your men speaking about all about? I'm like, well, it's great conversation. We talked to reveal, not to conceal, right? We go into the episodes, but I'm like, I went to your LinkedIn. I said, okay. So you work at this company? Okay. I get it. They want to make sure whom they're dealing with is, they're safe. Hands down. I get that. But we as men, we don't look at, we might go to social media, look at the profile, see if there's a few pictures of a person, if they tell us their real name. There's a lot of nicknames out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think women, to their credit, have more requirements. It's like if you're a man, it's more like a decathlon. It's not good enough just to be like a good sprinter. You have to be able to, throw the shot put too.
Right.
You're looking for more things. They're looking, just have more criteria. Women look at profiles longer. That's why men should have a longer profile than women.
Sure.
We men, if we're going to marry, we have strong, stringent requirements. But just to go on a date, she looks nice figure, maybe nice personality, something in common, maybe a common hobby,
right?
Same faith, whatever it is, that's all we look for. And I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, but that's typical.
Sure. No, I get it.
One way to stand out, I remember going out with this woman, and she had written a paper. So I did a little bit of check, and I said, and I mentioned, she said, "Oh, you're the first person who ever read that paper."
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so I did, I think that's a good way for a man to stand out. Although you don't want to seem creepy too, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing about right, creepy, right? You don't want to like. I checked your address. I checked this. I checked your marriage records. I checked this. That's creepy to a woman,
yeah,
right?
yeah, maybe though on the third date it wouldn't be creepy though.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like that
exactly.
third date you say, "Hey, I read you posted that paper, interesting," something like that. And they would,
Right.
or that's something to consider though. You probably should. I think women are wiser in that regard,
Yes.
in checking us out. And you're right, they do. They look up where you live,
Hmm.
um, if you have any criminal offense, that kind
Hmm.
of thing. I had the realtor I was talking about. I said, "Well, could you show me some?" She had the thing. She was looking up and she
So
said,
yeah,
"Oh,
you put on benverified.com. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty good. That's good."
I got one more question for you. I got one more question for you, Doc. I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry. The question I have for you is this: um, trauma, right? Do you think that we as men should ask women if they've experienced some sort of trauma? Because what happens is, if they have, there's triggers, right? There could be certain things that can trigger them. Um, and you're coming in blind, right? And I want to use this example. And ladies, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to apologize in advance. Okay, I do not support this behavior whatsoever. It could be somebody as simple as being sexually assaulted,
Right.
and by their mate,
Hmm.
because that happens. And so if you go to meet a woman, you hug her or you touch on her shoulder, so she just kind of freaks out because that same space or place on her body, the previous individual or the one in the past touched her in a disrespectful way. But now you're getting the grunt of it because you didn't know. So is it right? I'm not saying on the first date or whatever, but is it right to even ask a woman if you have experienced some sort of trauma so you can kind of know how to navigate the relationship?
Wow. Some volunteer. One that I had said she led with, I had a bad relationship with my dad, and I've never wanted to date anybody like him.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's the same kind of, it's not a sexual trauma, but that tells you a lot of something.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if a father is an alcoholic, they may not admit that right away, but that's going to influence their relationship. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't date them. It just means it's going to be more challenging than somebody from a quote unquote happy family.
Sure.
Uh, and I like to keep a first date a little bit lighter. I actually like a lunch. One of my go-to dates was I had a restaurant where the waiter knows me real well and treats me like a star.
Hmm.
It was my family too. And you say, "Oh," so it's like, you know, so it's a nice thing to cultivate is to have that, a waiter who kind of
Right.
yucks it up for you a little bit, and
Right.
it's kind of impressive to him.
Wow.
Um, you know, I did go on dinners and other kind of dates, but I think a lunch is a good way, kind of even a coffee. I'm not against, some women are against coffee dates, so kind of ask them what they like. But that first date, kind of like a low risk, and I probably wouldn't ask about trauma, but I would again have her do most of the talking, and you might
Sure. Sure.
do all. But there's certain things like that. They're not going to mention that they're date raped on the first. They're probably not
Right.
gonna say that.
Right.
And, so but I probably wouldn't do that on the first. I just try to keep it a little bit happier and
Right.
upbeat, not shallow. I'm not saying you can't talk about anything of substance,
Right.
but yeah, the trauma is a tricky one. There's a lot of people that have been through trauma, obviously, and
Yeah.
you know, you know. I think it's probably more common for women to have bad relationships with their father than men with their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a little more trickier for us.
All right. Well, there is a question from one of our listeners right now and she says, "Do you think that if you tell too much about yourself early and on the day, like if you're successful, could have put a target on your back, like he or she's the one because of status and finance?"
Well, they're going to know a little bit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend I helped who's a lawyer. So the lawyers do real well. I mean, because it's a high status profession.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I spent a lot of time trying to spin my profession. I write direct mail, which isn't glamorous, but instead of talking about junk mail, I talk about all the charities I help.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're not doing most of the talking, you're trying to interview her, right? Or have her.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
If you got her on the date, I don't think you need to brag. I think you're going to find things out anyway. It depends kind of where you are.
Mm.
If you're young, I think women are looking for ambition. So I would definitely talk about your goals and aspirations.
Sure.
If you're older, they're going to see certain things by your car and where you live. I don't think you need to brag about it.
Yeah. Okay.
How
Okay.
do again, discernment? How do you know if she really likes you or is she just looking for somebody to take care of her? One of the things I like, I married a CFO. She makes more than me.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not, what I'm saying? That's a certain, that's something I like. I didn't like women that were changing their careers mid-50s to something not even
Yeah.
related.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
not a big fan of that either.
they worked at Saks Fifth and then they wanted to go into tech. It's a strange thing because tech
Yeah.
is youth based. It was just like,
Yeah. Well, luckily for someone like myself, I've been in tech since the 90s.
well,
So
there you are. So
there you go. Right. Exactly. Right. Before it was even popular and famous, before it was sexy. Right.
all right.
But I want to talk about your website, right? I want to talk about your website. I want to talk about datingprofilesecrets.com. I see that you have this wonderful book here on the site, Dating Profile Secrets for Men, that you wrote. Attract your dream girl through storytelling, right? If you don't mind kind of summarizing what does that mean? And also datingprofilesecrets.com, one more time, datingprofilesecrets.com is where you can actually pick the book up and actually purchase it online. But please give a little synopsis about what the book's about.
Well, the book is intended to help all men, but particularly men like divorced guys, maybe who are new to the dating market. Maybe when they got married first time, it was before all these dating apps, and to kind of apply what I learned in advertising to creating a dating brand, if you will. And it's done through storytelling.
Okay.
And I don't know you, so I don't know what kind of story. What I know a little bit about you already. You would talk about if I was doing one for you. I'd talk about I'd have a family photo of your parents, maybe at their wedding anniversary. It's quite appealing. And then I would talk about you've been in the computers before it was cool. That kind of thing. So you're a podcaster. That's kind of interesting. And you have like a national audience, and you could tell your story. So you'd start with an origin story, how you were born, and that kind of thing, and go there, and maybe you do your hobbies, and you kind of end. I ended kind of interestingly. I really wanted to sell that I was interested in marriage and family, and part of that is research, market research. The 45 to 54 family was the most important thing that they listed, which is very different than say a 20-year-old woman. And I actually, and this is corny, but I went to a conference with this advertising guy who'd been an English professor, and he quoted this poem, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made." Now, guys would think that's corny to put that in there. But when a woman reads that, that's her dream, is to find the guy and kind of like go out to the sunset with him. And so there's no doubt, I really sold that I was interested in marriage. So it definitely attracted women looking for, and I know this because I went on a party, and my date had been invited by this guy, and I was impressed by the guy. I was surprised she picked me over him.
Mhm.
And I learned why though. She said, "Oh, he wasn't serious. He didn't say he wasn't really. He was just a player." In her opinion.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
you know, so
It happens. It
you
happens.
know, women can tell a player they've been lied to many times,
Sure. Sure.
many times. Just like we've been burned, they've been burned by guys that.
Well, there's no honor in that, right? There's no honor amongst thieves in that space, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, so
everybody.
I'm not a pickup artist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you could. I actually read their books to kind of learn the psychology that they do. That's just not my strength. You know, you have to play to your strength. So you don't want to just create any profile. You want to play a role that you can play. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
Like when you were talking about fashion, one thing we didn't talk about, you want to dress something that you can carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, I noticed on your website you have like these different profile packages, right? These
Right. I can,
executive VIP,
yeah,
and I was looking at some of them. I was like, this kind of, you don't mind high levels, kind of talk about each one, because and folks can go to your website and see the information
sure.
at a high level for those listeners.
I'll just the lowest is I'll just talk to you. You know, I'll look at your profile, assume you already have one. You know, most people come to me after they failed before. It's just the way things are.
Mhm.
I failed the first time too because I'll just put it up here. You know, just wing it. Well, winging it leads to failure. You know,
Sure.
you really got to plan. You got to think about who you're targeting. And so the first thing is I just go over your profile. Second thing is if you want a little bit more advanced, I'll actually create your dating profile. I can do a long version, more for like a match or eHarmony, or you can do say a Bumble, which is more of a short version. That's more like billboard advertising. You don't have as much copy space. Obviously, I prefer longer copy space because it gives you more opportunity to distinguish yourself. You know, because they have prompts and they have all sorts of things. And then you just I'll even coach guys, like for 40 days. Usually it takes around 40 days. I think you can find a girlfriend in 40 days.
Okay.
Particularly divorced guys, because I mean, there's certain people. I can't say I can help everybody. I mean, like if you're like a 36-year-old incel,
Okay.
that might be beyond my ability. But if you've been divorced, you got a steady job and you have some things to sell. It's just a matter of marketing,
Sure. How you market yourself, right? Exactly.
And
And
the things we talked about, like not talking too much, like I'm violating it right now on this, but you know what I'm saying? And when you're dating,
right.
I mean, I wouldn't be like this.
Right. Well, and last but not least, there's a lot of competition out here, right? People are looking for that unicorn, or shall I say, that needle in a haystack. And, sometimes, it used to be the 80-20 rule, right? You got to have 80% of this and 20% of that or whatever. I guess as I get older, for me, it's 90-10, right? I'm looking for 90% of what I get. I know it won't be 100, but I'm looking for at least 90%, right? Stability, shall I say, good sense of humor, a loving individual, caring, empathetic, understanding, and God-fearing. Those are like the basics, right? There's subcategories underneath that. But nevertheless, datingprofilesecrets.com, Mr. James Newberry. Dude, you're awesome.
Appreciate it.
I thank you. I appreciate you. People, you can check out this podcast on menspeakingout.com, and basically this episode, but our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We're going to grow our subscriptionship and want to make sure that we have individuals like Mr. Newberry come back and we learn and we grow, we develop, we share, and we explore. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. menspeakingout.com. Take care.